On the Track is a web TV show about cryptozoology, natural history, green issues and whatever else the team feel like making up as they go along. Enjoy!
So what do we have in this episode, Mr. John?
Well, Hannes, in this episode we have the first part of an interview with American Cryptozoologist Matt Bille, all about his new book and other stuff of general interest to you all in the cryptozoological community. And then we have the return of our old mate Ian Squibbs, who this week is visiting Lake Okanagan in Western Canada. And what's he going to be doing there? Well, you're just going to have to wait and find out.
I really like the old credits.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Downs. I'm the director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and welcome to another episode of On the Track. As regular viewers will know, each week we bring you a miscellany of hard science, weird shit, and surreality. What's surreality? Well, this is
Luigi! Coming for you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, much as though it pains me to tell you this, but there are more important things in life than cryptozoology and the other disciplines that we talk about on this show. And there are even more important things than elderly gentlemen dressing up in chicken costumes and generally playing the fool. Because although I tell you that looking at things through humour is one of the best ways of analysing the world around us, there are some things which you can't laugh at, and this is one of them. You may or may not know that my little brother Richard, who's 4 years younger than me, is a clergyman who lives and works in Germany, and recently he visited Ukraine, and he was so upset and appalled at the conditions that the people are living there that he saw while he was there that no sooner had he returned to his wife and family in Germany, but he started up a amazing campaign. In Ireland there's a company called Kettles who make these wood-burning kettles which do not need external power sources in order to be able to cook and to boil water and to provide heat. And Richard has done a deal with these people, and he has managed to get the Kerry Kettle Company to donate at cost these kettles, which are going to be sent to Ukraine. And Richard is raising money now to buy as many of these kettles as possible. And although I never ask you to raise money on these pages for us, it's very kind of you when you do donate something, but I never ask for money. I now am. Please, can you use the link below and send some money to my brother, who is doing his best to alleviate some of the horrific suffering which the Ukrainian people are undergoing this winter. I am going to be running this advert because I suppose it's an advert. I've never made an advert before, but I'm going to be running this advert every episode until the springtime. And if the war is still going on when we come to the colder months of the year next year, then I'll be running it again. And now Lilith and I want to introduce you to somebody whom we've known on the other end of an email for many, many years, but who until now I've never actually spoken to. American Cryptozoologist Matt Bille, who has just published a book which I find fascinating, and I've been kicking myself for the fact that I didn't think of it first. And I'm sure many other people who are authors within the cryptozoological community who are doing exactly the same, because it's a book about building a cryptozoological library. And as I have told viewers of this show many times over the years, in my opinion, the most important tool that any cryptozoologist has is his library. And now Matt has told us how to go about building one par excellence. Over to you, Matt.
Well, it's lovely to have you here, Matt, and it's lovely to put a voice to a face for the first time.
Likewise.
We've known each other for what, 25 years or something
Yes.
stupid. But congratulations on your new book. I think it's something that's long overdue.
Thank you.
What was your motivation? How did the idea of it come about?
Well, the easiest way to answer that is kind of the way you put it. It didn't exist. I've read hundreds of books on related subjects over time, and there are a couple of good online book lists. Shuker has one, and someone else has it, but there's never been a book collecting book reviews. And I thought, well, this is something that is within my ability, because I've still got most of the books and so forth, and would be a big service to everybody in cryptozoology and zoology. I assumed it would take 9 months. It took 18 to get it right. I had to order a bunch of books that I have promised my wife I will eventually resell. But here we are. And I think it's pretty good.
Well, my first thought when I opened it was, why didn't I think of that? It's it is, with hindsight, good old hindsight, it seems like an obvious thing to do. And I'm surprised that it's taken so long before anybody did it.
I don't know. It just, sometimes it just clicks.
I know Richard Freeman, because he was here last weekend. He told me to tell you that he was very, very, very touched by what you said about his Arlen Pendek book.
Oh, yes, I thought that was very intriguing.
You know that they've just come back from the 6th trip to Sumatra. They came back about a month ago.
I know, but I haven't seen anything posted about results yet.
Well, we put out videos on our channel, and they've got new handprints, they've got new footprints, and the most exciting thing isn't anything to do with the Arlen Pendek at all, even though one of the members of the expedition caught a glimpse of what logic dictates has to be the Arlen Pendek, only for a split second. But the exciting thing is that the part of Sumatra where they were has no tigers. But
that's right. I did read this.
I'm very proud of them for that. For getting the film of the tigers, I think was fantastic. So you've been one of the sort of cornerstones of cryptozoology, one of the figures of cryptozoology for a long time. What got you interested in it in the first place?
Well, I don't know if you can ever say where your first interest in something started. I loved animal books as a kid. I was growing up in Florida. We went to the shore, went to the aquariums, all that kind of thing. And I just started, reading everything there was about animals in general. And of course, that came to include Bigfoot and Nessie and all of those other maybe animals. And I kept up the interest until 1995, when I finally thought, well, I've seen all these articles and all these bits of information. Maybe I ought to put them together. And so that was my first book, Rumors of Existence, where I deliberately left out Bigfoot and Nessie so I could have a book focusing on the things people didn't hear about nearly as much. And that was a lot of fun, because that was largely pre-internet, and I physically crawled through 100-year-old stacks of magazines and journals and stuff, and that was fun. And I've kept up the interest ever since.
I think one of the problems with cryptozoology is that everybody's fixated with Nessie and Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
And there are so many other lesser known creatures which are equally as interesting, and dare I say, more likely to exist.
Yes, Orang Pendek being an example.
Orang Pendek, thylacine, and a whole host of smaller and lesser known creatures.
Yes.
It's like one of the things that's always fascinated me has been the night parrot in Australia, which every 30 years or so someone finds one, and then they disappear for another 30 years. So although we know they exist and they're probably still there, we don't know a thing about their biology, how long they live, what they eat, what they breed, we know nothing. And I think it's a great shame that people don't concentrate on some of these smaller things.
I agree. There is just so much to learn still about the natural world, and some people are out there, looking hard. You see the recent rediscoveries of birds and other things. But yes, as a general rule, the star animals, or the star alleged animals, have taken over the public imagination.
I'm not saying Bigfoot and Yeti don't exist. I think they probably do exist, but they are so elusive and found in such enormous spaces of countryside that it's going to take the resources of a medium-sized army to ever find either of them. And I think the only way we're ever going to discover the truth about Bigfoot is when one turns up as roadkill.
I think that's exactly right. I think, if I had to quote a line from Richard Ellis that I've been stealing ever since I read it, if I had to bet on Bigfoot, I would bet no. In fact, I have bet no. However, I deeply want to be wrong. And I think if we do have a specimen, it's going to be, like you said, it's going to be accidentally shot by an elk hunter or hit by a truck.
I think
because if they do exist, they are that elusive.
I think it'll be a truck driver who will then put the body in the back of the truck in order to take it to his insurance company to explain why he's destroyed his truck.
We have an insurance company here, Farmers, that advertises, that they've seen everything. I can just imagine calling them up and say, bet you've never seen this.
Most of me hopes it'll never happen, because the idea of a rare and intelligent, shy, higher primate getting hit by a motor vehicle is a horrible one.
True.
But there's that little bit deep inside the part of my brain which I usually pretend doesn't exist. This is what, if it did, we'd actually know the truth at last.
Yes.
What's your not favorite, what's the cryptid that you're most interested in?
Well, orang pendek is certainly one. The Yari, the Queensland tiger cat, is a fascinating case, and I wonder. The sightings all go back a ways, and I wonder if it's something that just went extinct in this century.
If it did, I think it would probably be because of cane toads.
Oh, you figure it wouldn't be smart enough?
I don't know. It depends how toxic bufotoxin is on their nervous
Marsupials,
system,
yeah.
because if it's toxic enough to make them ill but not kill them, they might learn by their mistakes. But if it is toxic enough, and let's face it, cane toads in the wild can get enormous. If it's toxic enough to kill them, then they're not going to learn by their mistakes. But I've always found the Queensland tiger, it's one of those ones that nobody very seldom talk about these days, which is a great pity, because the thylacine seems to have taken over from the Queensland tiger in the popular imagination.
Well, the thylacine, of course, is fascinating because we know it was there. And of course, we had the news yesterday. They just found that the skin of the very last one, the one that died in a zoo, the last one we know about, was found in a museum cabinet where it had been miscatalogued as just another skin. So that's kind of fascinating. And I do hope a few of them wander somewhere.
Well, there was a scientific paper written a couple of years ago claiming that the mathematics would suggest they were alive at least till the beginning of this century. And that's only 20 years ago. So I think the thylacine, if it did survive 1936, and I think there's evidence that it did, I think the odds are that it may well be still around today.
I hope so.
We've sent 4 expeditions, I think it is now, to Tasmania, and sadly they've never heard it or seen it or got footprints, but they have spoken to people who've heard it, and apparently the sound it makes is distinctive and unlike any other Australian animal that's still
Somebody called it a door creaking.
Which would make sense, because I think a lot of people expect it to bark because it looks like a dog, but it isn't anything of the sort, of course. I always feel sorry for Benjamin, the last thylacine, the one whose skin's just been found, because these days they'd say that Benjamin was misgendered because she had a male name, but she was actually a female animal. And I'm afraid that was all that we have time for this episode, but Matt Bille will be back next episode talking about the mystery animals of North America and all sorts of other things. But now it's time to go over to another old friend of the show, Ian Squibbs, who has something particularly exotic for us this time. Ian, it's lovely to have you back again, because I was afraid we wouldn't be seeing you until next year's Loch Ness sessions.
Yes. Well, it's good to be back on CFZ TV, John, and I wasn't, but there is some news to report, so I thought we'd better do a quick segment now on the latest news. But first, what we're going to do, as I mentioned before recording, I bought a copy of, let's just move in on this. I bought a copy of Tim Dinsdale's book, The Leviathans, first published in 1966. This edition is from 1976, so yes, I've not read it. Tells you of sea and lake monsters from around the world, so I covered some good ground there. But I had a little surprise when I opened it because I can show you and the viewers, as you can see there.
Wow. You lucky bugger,
Yes,
you.
it's actually been signed. Yeah, it's been signed by Tim himself. So yeah, that was a bit of a result. So yeah, good news. But I look forward to reading this. I don't know when I'm going to get round to reading it. I know it's I've only read one of his books before, and that was the Target book, which was really aimed at children. But still, it was quite a good read. He tells you about his the time he filmed the monster, and yeah. So anyway, but what we'll do is move on to today's topic, and we're going to head to Canada, and more specifically, Lake Okanagan, and have a look at the latest evidence to support the existence of the lake's resident monster, Ogopogo. But first, what we'll do, we'll look at a bit of background into the mystery. So we'll do that first. 1 second. Cheers, everyone. So Lake Okanagan is a lake in the Okanagan Valley of British Columbia, Canada. The lake is 135 kilometers long and between 4 and 5 kilometers wide. It has a surface area of 348 kilometers squared, so a fair size, a lot bigger than Loch Ness. I'm sure, though, I don't have to explain to viewers of this channel that the lake is home to a water cryptid by the name of Ogopogo. So, but I think it'd be good for us all to have a quick refresher on the mystery before we move on to the main subject. So, Ogopogo is probably the third best lake monster, with Nessie of Loch Ness being the first, and Champ of Lake Champlain being the second. So I would say it's third. Personally, I think the best lake monster is Morag of Loch Mara. I think that's better than the other lake monsters, but that's just my view. Anyway, the creature is generally described as a serpentine creature, being up to 50 feet in length, with smooth, dark skin and a body thicker than a telephone pole. The monster can move at incredible speeds, coiling its body vertically in undulations and propelling itself with a powerful tail. So it's more of a long serpent type creature rather than the classic plesiosaur type animal of Loch Ness and Lake Champlain, which I've got here. This is the plesiosaur. This is what's in Loch Ness and Lake Champlain. And Ogopogo is more this type of creature. This is actually my pencil sharpener, and there's the monster there with a hat on. So what we'll do, let's just look at the first picture I sent you there, John, and have a quick look at what Ogopogo looks like. So we'll just have a quick look at that. There's a mock-up of Ogopogo on the shores of Lake Okanagan. And as the saying goes, where there's lake monsters, there's tourist dollars to be made. So yeah, so just that there. Tales of the Ogopogo go back many centuries, with the indigenous peoples of the area referring to the creature as Nitaka, which they saw as a supernatural entity, great powers and ill intent. The word Nitaka has various translations, such as water demon, water god, or sacred creature of the water. So quite a mystical animal the indigenous people saw it as. Reports of an unknown animal in the lake have persisted over the years up until the present day. In 1968, the creature was caught on film. A guy by the name of Art Folden was driving on Highway 97 when he noticed something moving on the lake. he pulled off the road and filmed what he claimed to be footage of the alleged creature, showing a large wake moving across the water. An interesting clip, if a bit grainy, though not as grainy as the Dinsdale film. Definitely a large form, though, moving under the water there. What the film shows is unknown, but it's safe to say that Folden didn't film a boat like what Tim Dinsdale did. So, but anyway, there you go. That's a short refresher for us all, if you like, about Ogopogo. So let's move on to the most recent sighting of the beast. So let's have a look. Bit of background there. So in October of this year, Dale and Colleen Hancher were boating with their friend Myrna Brown on Lake Okanagan when they spotted something unusual in the water. Dale initially saw the object and told Colleen to get her camera ready as he turned the boat around, steering within 10 feet of it. Dale said of the incident, "As a boater, I was just looking to see if it was something dangerous that needed to be marked so someone doesn't run into it. We went on by and got thinking about it, and I said to Myrna and my wife that it didn't look quite right, and we should go and look at it again. We are puzzled as what it could have been. You know, we kind of eliminated what it wasn't in our heads. We talked about it a little bit, and then we just kept going." Despite having photographed the object with Colleen's phone and seeing it firsthand, the couple and their friend were unable to identify it. So, right then. So what we'll do, John, let's have a look at the photo and see what Colleen caught on film, and then we'll see what we think. So, what do you make of that, John? Do you think there? Definitely a yeah.
I think I need to bring on a visual aid. No, my visual aid is just exited out of the room wagging his tail. But it does look very dog-like, doesn't it?
It's definitely a symmetrical head of some form just under the water with two antenna or ear type objects breaking the surface. But so it looks prominent. Looks a bit like a cow's head. What do you reckon? What do you reckon? Cow, bull, something like that. It looks a bit cowy. And though lake monsters are more commonly described as having a horse-like head, some have been described as having a cow-like head. So it could be one of the cow types. Anyway, Dale went on. For one thing, the two nodular things that are sticking up, whatever they are, those are about 3 feet apart. I've done some research since we took this picture, and it's not a plant, it's not kelp, because this is a lake, and it's not the ocean. It's not a sturgeon. It's not a dead deer upside down. You can eliminate all these things, but the next question is, what is it? Ultimately, Dale said he just wants to know if anyone saw it or knows what it could have been. If it's totally disappeared and no one knows what it is, then what is it? We don't know, Dale added. So there you go. Could this be an image of the legendary Ogopogo? Well, could be, but we'll just move on a bit. Cryptid researcher, folklorist, and Fortean Adam Benedict offered his explanation for the object. Lake Okanagan is home to several species of diving duck, such as the great scope, can dive over 20 feet and hold its breath for up to a minute. The reason that some people interpret it as a monster, Benedict explained, is due to the lake's reputation. Well, it could be. One thing you know, whenever you're dealing with a lake that has a history or reputation of having something in it, your mind is always going to go to that thing first, he said. Your mind is instantly going to say, I'm seeing the monster, I'm seeing the creature. What caught my attention was the two protruding objects at the surface, but when I bring it into a larger screen and zoom in, I see a water bird of some sort in the process of a dive either just right below the surface or in the process of coming up. He said, the two protruding objects at the back, of course, would be its legs in some way, whether they're bent or they're kicking. But you can see just below the surface an eye as well as its beak right at the top of the waterline. So Benedict went on to illustrate what he was getting at. So if you look at the next picture there, John, so that's a bigger, it was zoomed in there. That's what Benedict, and then Benedict drew a duck over the object to show what he was getting at. Now, I'm not too sure about that. What do you think? Do you think that's a duck or a bird of some kind?
The left hand one of the pointy things could be could be the tail of a diving duck going like
Yeah.
like the poem
Well,
of Willows.
it'd have to be two diving to though, wouldn't there?
Yeah, but the one on the right hand side.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm not too sure though. More a case of parandola, I think. And surely if it was a bird, then the witnesses would have realized that the bird wouldn't just stay in that position, would it? It would move about, and they would see it's a bird and wouldn't make such a fuss out of it. So yeah,
and the bird,
I'm not sure he's right there.
And the bird wouldn't have the two pointy things 3 feet apart.
Yeah, quite true. Anyway, if a person was boating on a lake that wasn't associated with a myth, however, it may not shake out the same way, Benedict added. Benedict's comments have been met with derision by some cryptid enthusiasts who said they are unable to see anything resembling waterfowl in the picture. Yeah, I thought it was ridiculous for assuming it was some sort of waterfowl, one person commented on social media. I mean, really? There's absolutely zero resemblance. What the hell does this guy see that he thinks it's an aquatic bird? Commented another. I don't see anything that resembles a bird at all. So yeah, didn't go down too well with the believers of Ogopogo. The Singular Fortean Society contacted Benedict for a response to his detractors, to which he replied, don't let your desire of wanting it to be a monster allow you to forget about actual animals also existing in the lake. So yeah, well, bit of a kill with Benedict, but you know, it's that's his opinion. Another explanation for what the object is that it's a leftover from the annual Dragon Boat Festival, which is an annual festival held on the lake where participants row boats which have dragons' heads on the bow, a bit like Viking ships of old. So let's go to the next picture there, John. We can have a look at the sort of participant that take place in this festival. And as we can see there, is one of the boats, and we can see the dragon's head on the front of the boat there, but they haven't really put a lot of effort into theirs, have they? So, in fact, it's quite poor, and they should be ashamed of that, to be honest. But it looks like fun all the same. And so it has been suggested that one of the dragon's heads became detached from its boat and is still floating around the lake, which I think is a more plausible explanation than the water bird, unless you like bird explanation, John. I prefer the latter explanation. So there you go. There you have a summary of the latest Ogopogo sighting and some possible explanations. So yeah, what do you reckon, John?
I didn't know about the dragon boat. That makes perfect sense. Except
the annual festival every year.
The dragon head on the image which we saw just now looks like a cross between Mr. Punch and something that Frank Searle would have come up with.
Yeah, as I mentioned, they didn't put much effort into it, did they? So, but yeah, I'm sure they were better ones, but I found that one. Looking at this, so the main issue I have, and I think other people must have noticed, is that there's only one photo of the object, no film footage. You know, would have been easy to get more images and possibly put the mystery to bed. And it doesn't really make sense why we've just got one photo. But that's just my thoughts on the matter.
But I agree with you, it's not.
But, quite true. But to finish on, the one thing that we mustn't rule out is that we could be looking at the head of the real Ogopogo. Thank you.
If you want to support us and help us make more content like these, please press like, subscribe, follow our Facebook page and check out our Patreon.
And there's the ghost of Joe Strummer, who's an ever more regular visitor to my little studio, wants me to remind you, always press the notification bell. Otherwise you won't be told when there's a new show to watch. And that would be an awful pity, wouldn't it? Well, ladies and gentlemen, here we are at the end of another episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed putting it together, and it's always nice to be able to look back at a show and feel really proud of it, like I do on this one. I want to say a big thank you to everybody but for whom this show would not have been made. First of all, my guests, Matt Bille and Ian Squibbs, and then, as always, my producer Louis, Graham Inglis, Deputy Director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and my carer as my body slowly but inexorably falls apart. I want to say a big thank you to my lovely housekeepers, Judy and Shelley, and to my lovely secretary, Karen. And I want to say a big hello, and I hope you're feeling better, to Miss Maxine all the way in Shoeburyness. And that's about it. I'll be back in a week's time, and it will be the first episode of 2023. So, all I have to say here is to wish you all out there in viewership land. Is a word viewership? Well, the bloody one ought to be anyway. Out there in viewership land, a very, very happy, safe, and comfortable New Year.
Hey John, not to ruin your New Year's wishings to everybody, but you do understand that YouTube is a multicultural platform, and by wishing everybody a New Year, you're not necessarily accounting for people who don't believe in such concepts as years.
And if you're watching Mr. McQuinnan, I'll be seeing you.